Welcome along to Obsession Engineering, and I thought it was a bit of a time we had an update from the workshop as to what we're doing this year when we go racing. And you may have noticed something on the bench with a cover on it. And this is going to be quite critical to our plans because under here is our new Superbike. So I suppose we ought to take the cover off and have a look. So 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! And this looks exactly like one of last year's Hondas, because it is one of last year's Hondas, but now it's our Honda. And I suppose we ought to show you a few more details about it. The keen-eyed amongst you will notice the mudguard is missing, and so is the tank cover, and that's because team boss Matt has taken those to be copied, and he took them away within about 5 minutes of us getting the bike in the workshop. We did the usual thing, we looked at it doughy-eyed, and then we got the spanners out. The big change compared to the Hondas of last year is our bike is on Brembos. There is a little bit of a backstory to this as well. When we collected the bike from Honda, they'd already fitted a full set of Brembos to it for us. Unfortunately, they'd fitted the newest spec World Superbike calipers, which are, firstly, eye-wateringly expensive to buy, and secondly, they have to run a Brembo specific pad that only Brembo make. These pads are £70 a pad. The ones for the fancy new World Superbike spec calipers were £95 a pad. And between the cost of buying the calipers and the cost of the extra pads during the season, having the ever so slightly newer version ones were going to cost us probably around £3,000 in a season. And although we have some excellent funding, we don't have enough to be throwing away money like that. And so we're on basically the same caliper that everybody else has got, the HPK monoblock, and that is matched with these lovely big Brembo discs. And even the discs are eye-wateringly expensive, especially when you need to buy 6 sets of them to fit all your wheels. So that has been a fairly big cost at the start of the year, but the feel from the Brembos is supposed to be better than the Nissans that Honda use, and so that's why we've opted for those. The lovely big Suter swinging arm, and this is one of the machined ones, so the side plates, instead of them being made from pressed aluminium, they're actually machined from solid, so this is sort of machined billet, and that way the actual wall thicknesses and the material can be a lot more closely detailed inside. So it might look nearly the same on the outside, but actually internally they're quite different to the fabricated swinging arms with the just sort of pressed side plates, and they're lovely. There's bits scalloped out of them and little carbon razors for the paddock stands and bits like that. At the moment the bike is on Honda's homemade rear set, and we say homemade in a lovely factory, but even Honda admit these are quite expensive, and so we've actually changed and we have some Spider rear sets and clip-ons and a couple of other bits on order, because we've run the Spider stuff before. It is absolutely mega quality, and it's actually quite a lot cheaper than the Honda stuff, and I suspect possibly lighter as well. Right. Öhlins shock in the back, and you can see here there's a brace or a bracing point, so you can actually run a brace across the back of the frame. That gives you a little bit more rigidity, and basically depends where you want the bike to spin or grip. It depends whether you run the brace or not. Motec ECU is sat on top of the airbox, and then we have lovely big Honda yokes, triple clamps, whatever you like to call them, with the Honda's homemade rear clip-ons and bits. There are a few changes we are going to be making. We're actually getting Harris to make us some different yokes. Basically we want offset adjustment in a set of yokes, as opposed to having 4 or 5 sets of yokes on the side. Again, it's a little bit more cost effective, so that's the route we're going. So that is the basics of the bike from what you can see on the outside. But to really poke around at a few other details, I think it's time to get it naked. Because Rob is our glamorous assistant and our BSB mechanic, it's up to him really to get the bodywork off. So ready, Rob?
Ready?
3, 2, 1.
Ta-da!
I'll tell you what, Rob, you're quite quick at this. With the bodywork and everything off it, you can see that there's not a lot underneath the seat unit. And there is, of course, 2 reasons for that. Firstly, if you cartwheel it in a crash, you don't want all your electronics and bits getting ripped off. It also gets the weight away from the poles of the bike. So tucked down here is a little lithium battery, starter solenoid, bits of wiring loom sort of tucked in underneath the throttle bodies. The loom has obviously all these sort of quick connectors everywhere for actually undoing stuff. That is the fuel tank connection, so that it's a lot easier to take the tank on and off. That's the electrical connector for it. That is the loom connection for everything up the front of the bike. So that includes dashboard, the potentiometers and bits for suspension and brake pressures and bits like that. The front brake comes across here and actually has a dry brake at the top. Now, we're not running dry brake connectors at the calipers. There is two reasons for that as well. The idea with this is, if you crash the bike, you can change the handlebar really, really quickly. So it's just unclip everything, unclip the brake line, put your other built-up handlebar on, clip it together, no need to bleed it up. Also, they're 250 quid a set, so you don't want 500 quid to hang off your calipers if you're not going to use them all the time. Honda were running very nice pre-preg sort of fully built up carbon fibre air scoops and clock brackets. Again, quite expensive. And so we've actually converted to this is the carbonium one off of our Superstock bike. And it is a couple of 100 grams heavier than the Honda version, but it fits exactly the same and it is less than half the price. So we have to be a little bit practical with, yes, having the lightest thing would be nice, but having something we can actually afford to replace is a lot more useful. Big borer radiator and oil cooler. The radiator itself isn't actually that much bigger than the standard one, but the oil cooler is considerably bigger volume. So at the moment the bike is on Akrapovic, pick your pronunciation, exhaust pipes, but we're going to be on Arrow stuff. Basically, Honda use these. We have a really good deal with Arrow and we've used them before and they are mega, so we are converting the exhaust systems as well. If you want to see some really intricate detailing, these little elbows that Honda have put on the brake lines, they're literally just an adapter elbow, but this one's also got the brake pressure sensor off it as well. So it means you can replace one section of the brake line at a time, and these fix the yokes, and it's very neat and tidy. Again, these are actually relatively expensive to make, and so we're actually converting. We're going to put Hell brake lines on it. We've run Hellster before, mega quality, little bit simpler system setup, so that's another little mod we're doing. Because on the Superbikes you can actually change the insert in the headstock and move the entire headstock forwards or backwards, so alter sort of the weight bias onto the front wheel, and you can actually change the rake angle a little bit. There is inserts down here. We're going to have offset adjustable yokes, but that means that the steering damper mount moves. So obviously you have the actual mount for the steering damper like normal, and then behind it you have an adapter in there. So basically every time you move the front of the bike forward or backwards, you need to change the adapter so your steering damper actually works properly. It's all the little details that make this a really super bike. So that is a little look under the skin of our Superbike. When we get back onto track, there's going to be a lot more details being shared about this, and some onboards and all the stuff we're learning on the data and all that exciting stuff. But for now, that is it for that Superbike. So we've seen one Superbike, but it was of course in Honda colours and not in the Rapid Honda by Marvel colours. And so I think we ought to really have a little bit of a mock-up of how the Rapid Honda bike should look, which is conveniently what's under here. Ta-da! We're getting good at this, aren't we? Or are we? So this is actually our super stock and then pathway bike from last season, but with a few of the new sponsors on it, so it looks even better. So let's have a little bit more of a look, see who we've got on board for this year. So of course, let's start with our biggest and most important title sponsor, Rapid. So those of you who don't know, Rapid is the UK's leading rider coaching company. So if you want to be faster, more confident, and basically a better rider, whether it's on road or track, check out rapidtraining.co.uk. Along with Rapid, we're incredibly pleased to have Hior and Lime Solicitors as our big important partner sponsors. So really important that we've got them on board. If you've had a biking injury or just an injury in life generally, check out Lime Solicitors. They are excellent at what they do. They are a brilliant company. And big thanks to Hior for also coming on board as a partner sponsor. We will be featured in Bike Magazine regularly as well while the season gets going. And then of course we have little sponsors as well. I say little, they're just as important to us. they're just not as big. So we've got Hell down there, we've got Gibson Survey Mapping, Armada Marina Cables, Hugh Shot, and there's a number for some young lad on here as well. Don't know who that is though. Franco something? Mystery to me. And then of course we've got Motul. We're continuing our association with Motul that's been going on for a good few years now, so it's absolutely brilliant to have the best oils and fluids in our bikes. So it's absolutely brilliant to have some big names on our bike, but there is still some spaces on the fairings a bit, so if you would like to get your company or yourselves involved in the Rapid Honda and Franco Born journey, just drop us a message and we'll put you in touch with Team Boss Matt. So this was our Pathway spec bike at the end of last year. Before that it was our very successful Superstock bike, but we actually have to put it back to Superstock spec for our pre-season testing because there is a Superbike testing ban. So we are going to Spain, but we're taking the Superstock bike for most of the testing. Because we're a new team, we have actually got dispensation during a couple of days on the Superbike, but the bulk of our testing will actually be on our old faithful Superstocker. Good old girl. Now that we've had a look at the BSB bikes, of course we actually need to talk the most important race of the year, which is of course the Isle of Man TT. And that is my TT bike. But obviously I'm not going to be riding it because I've stopped going to the TT now. I will admit, the other day I was talking TT with somebody and I was reminiscing and I realised how much I'm going to miss it, and it's a good job the entries are already closed. That's all I'm going to say on it. So this bike though will be going around the Isle of Man again, just obviously not with me on it. Tom Whedon is borrowing this. I have known Tom for years. He didn't have a big bike to ride, so I've offered him my marvellous BMW. He is not the only person riding one of my bikes though. We have Julian Trummer actually going out on our little RS660 Super Twin as well. Julian is over 128 mile an hour man. He is going to be quick. He is a bit more suited size-wise to a little bike than me as well, and I actually can't wait to get Julian on the bike. He's going to be testing it at the No Limits first round at Snetterton in March, and I think he's going to be really, really fast on it. So I think Julian's going to run solid top 10 on the twin. I want to see Tom, I want to see him actually see if he can go faster than me on it, because then I want to, you know, prove to everybody that I build a really good bike and it was just the rider letting it down. But anyway, I'm actually quite excited to get back to TT. It is going to be different this year. I'm sure at some point I'll be stood at the side getting quite grumpy because I'm not riding round, but it will be great to have my bikes going around as well. So that is it from our little workshop update of what's going on with our racing this year. I am going to be doing a little bit of racing here and there to keep my eye down because I actually really enjoy doing it, just not obviously the big daft stuff like TT anymore. So thank you for watching, and join us again next time for more behind the scenes, some more onboard action and some more general motorbike fun.